Welcome to Monarchist Minute, Royalist news and discussion of the good old US of A. I am Charles York. Here with me tonight are Victor Smith and William Stout. And today we are going to begin with a prayer and also close with a prayer because of our first topic. So this is the prayer of St. Francis Xavier. So in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and the Holy Ghost, Amen. O God, everlasting creator of all things, remember that the souls of unbelievers were made by thee and formed in thine own image and likeness. Remember that Jesus, thy Son, endured a most bitter death for their salvation. Permit not, I beseech thee, O Lord, that thy Son should be despised any longer by unbelievers, but do thou graciously accept the prayers of holy men and of the Church, the spouse of thy most holy Son, and be mindful of thy mercy. Forgive their idolatry and unbelief, and grant that they too may some day know him thou hast sent, the Lord Jesus Christ, who is our life and resurrection, by whom we have been saved and delivered, to whom be glory for endless ages. Amen. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and the Holy Ghost. Amen. Well, there was some discussion as to whether or not we should start off this episode with the Te Deum, because of our first topic, which is the leaked Supreme Court ruling. But it wasn't deemed appropriate by me to do the Te Deum because it's not an official ruling yet. So, yeah. Rather, a prayer for the conversion of those who do not believe would be thought be better, or I thought be better. Anyways, so with perhaps the longest single intro in the podcast history outside of... No, it's not the longest. Anyways, so so we're going to be talking about the Supreme Court ruling. Drafted ruling, of course. What this would mean, how people and states are responding, and also an interesting something of an aside that's not necessarily important with the whole abortion debate, but simply the fact that there was a leak like this that happened. So we're going to start off. I'll pass it off to Victor Smith for his whole take on exactly what this ruling would mean if it is indeed implemented. Okay. Well, there's a little bit of sort of doom and glooming there. I wasn't. I don't really think that the crime rate is necessarily going to go up in 20 years. I just think it will. I think people will either be more careful or yeah. Well,
if I can weigh in.
Yeah.
There should be really no excuse that unplanned pregnancy and crime rate should jump this high. Not in a 21st century where we have as well of access to contraceptives as we do. Maybe if it was 100 years ago, but today birth control is easily and widely available. And the idea that abortion being banned in several states is going to cause unplanned pregnancies to massively skyrocket is, frankly, kind of absurd to me. If anything, what it's going to do is it's going to drive the demand for birth control through the roof. Or, if they're actually serious about this sex right thing, then we have abstinence, which is what we've been asking for how long?
Please be serious about the strike. Please be serious about the strike.
If any feminists are actually watching this, that's not threatening us. We've been asking for that for a while now. You are basically practicing abstinence. You've come to our conclusion and have claimed it as your own, and we're not going to dispute you.
And should we allow Joe Capray up because he has some words he wants to tell us?
As long as we keep it civil, I suppose.
Very well, Joe. Please step forward. While we wait for Joe to get his mic unmuted.
Yeah, I like to personally apologize for being a little too umming with the intro. We started prepping a little bit later than we normally do, because
you can blame me because I was you can blame me because I was taking a bit longer finishing dinner. Y'all can blame me.
Yeah, we all had dinner problems tonight. In fact, I had to suggest a flamethrower for Will's little roast problem. So yeah.
Dinner consists of Zinfandel wine and garlic bread.
All right, Joe's mic is ready, so let it commence. Hello?
Hello, Joe.
Hello? The joys of running a live podcast, and
I wonder if he's having Wi-Fi problems too, because Adrian said he was. Maybe everyone has bad internet connection tonight.
I guess Michigan is just the only place where we have decent internet. Oh, well.
I mean, as much as I want to agree with that, I'm gonna randomly pop in. This is Dark Kilhoun hopping on. So we've also been seeing a reduction in the amount of sex between every generation. I think the boomers had the most amount of premarital sex, then Gen X was a little bit less, millennials were drastically actually less than Generation X, and now Gen Z is pretty much like, well, most of them want to have sex, but they're honestly having less premarital sex than all the other generations combined.
Okay, Joe, are you ready now?
Yeah.
All right,
Okay.
so the good old turn it off and turn it back on again works. Okay.
Always has and always will, Chuck.
Chuck?
I always wanted to
Let's
call
go,
you that.
Joe.
I always wanted to call you that, Charles.
Wait, is Chuck the short for Charles?
Mm-hmm.
Could be.
I mean, that's what one of the characters says in those Peanuts
Yeah.
things.
Oh, Charlie. Ah, okay. Oh yeah, Charlie Brown. Duh. Okay. Well, this is your episode of Charles realizes the obvious. Okay. All right. Now the debate can begin.
I'll moderate.
Okay.
So, where do we want to begin? Joe, would you like to get us started?
Yeah, he has the black and white photo, so he gets to start.
Okay.
I'm the oldest here.
Yeah, your profile picture is Emperor Norton, so I mean, you kind of have seniority.
Yeah. All right. So I would say like there would be 24 marches of life in our nation. Because there's like 26 states that have trigger laws that would, if this were to be overturned, would make it criminal.
I'm not sure I would try to describe them as trigger laws. It's just legislation that was never taken off the books coming back into effect. I mean, some states there are trigger laws, but...
That is true. That is the case.
In my home state of Ohio, we have a heartbeat bill that's being contended in court right now. If Roe v. Wade gets struck down, that immediately leaves court and goes on the books.
Yeah, Michigan, we have a law. It's from 1931, and it's weird that people are saying it's a law from 1931 as if somehow the law's age made it bad. Like, I'm sure the original statutes for homicide are a couple centuries old, depending on the state. So, I mean,
Or a few millennia if we're gonna use the Ten Commandments.
oh yeah.
I mean, what year did income tax become law?
1920?
So is
you know what? Income tax is too old. It's past its sell-by date. You know what? That amendment no longer applies.
if only it were so easy.
I think
Maybe we can-
income tax was actually in. It was done for World War I, so 1917.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. The government. Yeah. So that was actually why they had one of the reasons they tried to justify prohibition, because the U.S. government, the federal government, one of their main sources of tax revenue was the taxes they collected from the alcohol industry. And so they decided to have income tax as a way of compensating for all that lost revenue. You know, if you make manufacturing alcohol illegal, And then they repeal prohibition, but they keep the income tax because,
I know
My-
income tax originally only
Let's get
applied
back
to
to
the
let's get back to the abortion, I guess, debate or whatever. Joe, was that the only point you wanted to bring up?
I guess I could bring up the religious stuff
Hmm.
and how in Judaism you're basically required to get one if your life's in danger.
Well, I
And
mean,
if we do overturn this, then this could be like violating the First Amendment, I want to say it is.
Well, I mean, the if life is in danger element, I mean, I don't think anybody really. Oh, I think Joe's internet.
No, I moved him because I don't think he had another point to make.
Oh, well, okay, I would wait until he was done. But,
Yeah, bring him back up.
yeah, yeah. So, you see, ladies and gentlemen, one thing you had to understand about us is that we are not necessarily the most well-rehearsed machine. Despite the fact that we've been doing this for 36 episodes.
There's infighting in the point. That's what's going on.
Yeah, you know what? We're gonna force you. You know what? We've looked at our audience retention and we decided that we would really like it if at one part of the video the audience retention was literally 0%. So we present to you this technical nightmare. Anyways, back.
This is going on the blooper reel at the end of the year.
If I remember to do so. Okay. Anyways, so what I was going to say, if a procedure is there to save the life of the mother and there's no way of saving the child, and that's not. I don't think anybody actually considers that an abortion, but it's because the procedure that's saving the mother not as a direct result, is not as the intended effect, but as a result, unfortunately leads to the loss of a child. Because if you imagine, at least this is from my understanding of Catholic social teaching, so if I'm getting anything wrong here, please let me know and I recant of any errors. But if you imagine your standard trolley problem, where it's you flip it the points, this and this happens, the child is potentially on the track in both cases, because if the mother dies, then the child dies. But fortunately, as our medical technology advances, and what's like the earliest like time now that like a baby has survived outside of the womb? Like it was.
I know that when I was born, I was I think I was like 3 months early. And this was in '93, and they called it a miracle that I survived.
I heard it's 23 weeks today.
How many weeks?
23, just before the end of the second trimester.
Yeah. Okay. So hopefully, with the advancements in medical technology, if there is a problem like that comes up, we the child will still be able to live, and the mother will be able to live. So hopefully that's the case. But these medical procedures, at any rate, aren't. Abortion is the killing of the child is not the primary effect. It's an unfortunate side effect of the medical treatment. So I don't think that any state actually has that as a law in their books, that the accidental or the death of a child as a result of a medical procedure that is strictly necessary to save the mother. Now, obviously, if the mother feels like she has to get Botox injections to reduce her wrinkles, and that messes things up, obviously that's wrong. But yeah.
And I've heard some chatter on social media from left-wing people that some state legislatures are. I can't speak to the veracity of this, so don't quote me, but some of them may be looking at legislation that would ban all abortion, including the stuff where the baby is not viable at all, like, for example, ectopic ectopic pregnancy, if I can speak today.
I mean, I haven't heard anything like that, but
For those of you who don't know, an ectopic pregnancy is when the egg implants on the inside of the I forget what the technical name of the tube is.
Fallopian tube.
That goes from the ovary to the uterus.
It's called the fallopian tube.
Fallopian tube, thank you. And it is very dangerous for both the mother and the child.
yeah, I don't think.
Which it also happens extremely rarely.
Yeah,
Just saying.
yeah, I don't know of any law that would allow that, because that would essentially be the death of both the mother and the child. I mean, I guess like in, I don't know, maybe 60 years, if you have a way of essentially doing a weird C-section, and putting the child into essentially an artificial womb, then at that point, you can say, you had to get that. But yeah, I don't know. That kind of sounds like, I don't know, somebody said left-wing fear mongering, because I've never heard anybody do that.
If this is a real thing, if somebody's listening to this right now and knows where that is being considered, drop it in the comments section in the YouTube video, please, and we'll address it next week. Thank you very much.
All right.
I would imagine it's in a red state.
Well, no, I mean that's what the people were saying, is that is that some red states are considering this, but I haven't heard of anything like that, and I don't think anyone is, because at least from the Catholic Church's perspective, I mean, that's not something that
Anyway,
because it's going to result in both deaths.
Okay.
My money would be on Mississippi anyways. They seem like the state that would do that.
Most Americans are not Catholic, and they don't apply Catholic teaching. Most of the Republican Party are crazy evangelical Protestants.
Well, yeah, I know, but I mean, I don't exactly. I mean, that was sort of what I was saying. That it's sort of or what I was trying to convey is that's the perspective that I'm taking it under. But I don't know of any crazy evangelical Protestants that are doing that, are advocating for that in all cases. I mean, maybe Darth or somebody knows something, but I don't know.
I mean, the problem is with that, the clergy, the liturgy has gone insane, and that's what happens with low church Protestants. So I can actually see this happening theoretically.
All right.
But if America is truly a democratic nation, the Catholics are the largest religious group, so they would submit to the Catholic Church. Just saying.
The largest single
denomination
of religious group.
You see, Protestants, this is what you get for fracturing. This is what you get for fracturing into 100,000 different things every 15 seconds. Yeah, I'm looking at you, Methodist.
We would like to welcome the Global Methodist Church, not to be confused with the United Methodist Church, which they just split off from this past week.
Even though they were talking about this for a couple of years, I remember hearing about them splitting over the whole gay marriage issue.
Anyway, let us discuss the different state reactions, and I will state for the record here that Maryland, I think, has a wide-sweeping abortion legality law thing where the state of Maryland would be largely unaffected by Roe in its current form, in its current political form, at least. And I know that several organizations have already started protesting. Now, this is coming from Fox News. A Catholic church in Boulder, Colorado, I mentioned this at the top of the show. My Body, My Choice was spray painted on the outside walls of that church, along with pentagrams, etc.
Which is
That
ironic,
is sickening.
given that the pentagram was actually originally a Catholic symbol that the Satanists appropriated, like the St. Peter's cross.
Still is.
Yeah, I was about to say St. Peter's Cross.
Yeah. Yeah, for those of you who don't know, the pentagram actually originally represented the 5 wombs of Christ. And apparently it's actually in the Canterbury Tales. I can't remember which night, but on the outside of a shield facing his enemies, there was that symbol, which I think they called a different name.
The Green Knight.
Huh?
With the Green Knight.
Oh, cool. Okay. I don't know. I haven't read the Canterbury Tales yet. I do have a copy, although it has every single one except the Parsons Tale. It just has a summary because, obviously we can't let people read that one. Anyways, but then on the inside of the shield was a depiction of the Blessed Mother, which was apparently a common thing with real knights to do. Yeah. So, I mean, in regards to the vandalism of Catholic churches, our forefathers survived a lot worse before, and the ones that didn't were, martyred. So, I mean, it's really a annoyance. I mean, we're not.
They can pout all they want. Roe
Yeah.
v. Wade is going in the dustbin.
Just like that guy in front of the Supreme Court building when a woman was screeching, he just told her to cope and seethe, woman, cope and seethe.
Oh, back to lives rent free in my mind. That was beautiful. Oh, that reminds me. Give me a second. There's a YouTube video I saw earlier. It fits it perfectly. I'm gonna post that in podcaster chat. Sorry
Yes.
for a moment.
Yeah.
We should link that in the description.
Well, I don't know. Anyways, I guess what I had to say is, I mean, even in Canada, I mean, last year there were a bunch of riots over the whole alleged mass graves that turned out not to be mass graves. But anyways, so yeah, we've
kind of ironic that the organization is called Ruth Sent Us.
Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Yes, like Ruth.
Okay, so the actual leak. Now to go to the leak itself. This isn't the first time this has happened, obviously. This is the first time, though, that a leak has been made to the general public on this wide of a scale, and people actually cared about it.
But wasn't Roe originally leaked to the public?
I believe Roe was leaked. This is an error that I made in the Royal American, assuming the 1919 date was true. It's actually not true. Roe itself was leaked. But if you want to remember something, as much joy as most of us feel about Roe being overturned, we are not, I repeat, not joyful that this was leaked prior to the official judgment.
I'm not.
I am going to repeat this again. We are not happy that this was leaked.
Yeah,
and we'll get into the reasons why it could have been leaked in a little bit, but just to put a bow on this, it's probably a clerk. It wasn't a justice herself. It was probably a clerk. Never attribute to malice where you can to stupidity.
So the senile in chief pardoned the clerk that leaked it. It was the name is revealed at least at the federal level that they're keeping away from the press. But
wait a minute, okay, hold on. Can you provide a link to that story in our little podcaster chat so we can put it in the description?
Yeah,
Wait, the ID's been revealed?
I heard of a
Yeah. Well, no, it hasn't been revealed to the press, but it's been revealed to the actual federal intelligence agency that investigated, and Joe Biden pardoned said person.
So we're just gonna ignore the fact that the person who leaked an important Supreme Court document is now going to have to hope that his name isn't going to be leaked because he's going to get a lot of flack if it is.
Hold up. Now, I know my source won't necessarily be reliable for this, but according to the summit of all political knowledge, which is Political Compass memes, there are no true articles that have specified that Biden has pardoned the leaker. Only fake text. None of it has been confirmed true yet.
Okay.
None of it confirmed, but I won't be surprised if it is true.
Anyway, let us.
Well, I mean, I think
You can psychologize the regime too and expect what they're going to do. That's how you fight wars.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's worth dwelling on this a little bit. I mean, the notion that you can just leak a ruling from the Supreme Court. I mean, I don't know. I mean, the whole concept of leaking is sort of odd. I mean, on a more petty level, when it comes to information about upcoming movies and video games, I mean, whatever. I mean, my only real problem with it's you're watching illegally distributed copyrighted material. But I mean, if that wasn't in the equation, I'd say go ahead and spoil the movie, whatever. But when it comes to legal cases like this, I think there's a reason why, and I'm going to guess this is the reason why, the Supreme Court doesn't typically reveal what it's thinking about deciding until it actually decides on a case, because that way the court can't be subjected to public pressure.
Exactly. It's about impartiality and protecting the people who have vested interest in the case. Because when the Supreme Court gives a ruling, it is as a result of a lawsuit. It's because the lawsuit went to the Supreme Court. And the people involved in said lawsuit have a right for their privacy to be protected. By releasing the Supreme Court ruling, you are in this case, violating their right to legal privacy.
How ironic how Roe was decided based off of a right to privacy.
Well, yeah,
how the turntables.
And
I mean,
speaking of privacy, just as the Supreme Court justices are afforded the right to legal privacy, so are juries. And juries are not allowed to reveal the details of their case until after their jury has finished with that particular case. And so I believe now we can probably move on to discussing intellectually the concept of jury duty. And to assist us with that discussion is a member of our Discord server who has recently served on a jury, in fact, just got off it this week.
I guess he's away from
keyboard.
Yeah, he's away from keyboard, so we'll just get in. There we go. There he is.
Sorry, I didn't realize I had to accept that.
Okay, there we go. Go ahead and basically give us what your experience was.
Oh, actually, since we have 6 people up here now, at least at the time being, Joe, can I, for just in case Craig decides to die, could I move you back to the audience? Because we don't know how Craig is going to respond to 6 people being up at one time. Is that okay? Okay.
You can move me.
Yeah,
temporarily.
I'm just, yeah, okay, yeah, okay. All right, he said yes. Oh boy, this is a rocky night. One of our most important episodes, and we're all, uh. Okay, after the next topic, I say we take a 5-minute set down and just reset
Yeah.
ourselves. Okay.
Okay.
Anyways, so we'll let Koshing Dying here describe his experience with juries and whatnot.
I mean, what it like? What is there anything in particular? Or you just want me to go through the whole thing?
I
Go
mean,
through the whole thing.
like
The whole thing.
whether or not you played hangman on the jury, while you were listening to the trial, whether or not you tried to disguise yourself from sleeping, whether the bailiff tackled anyone, that sort of thing.
I mean, yeah, I'm
Um,
pretty one of us have
okay.
gotten that letter in the mail saying we might have to serve for jury duty, but how many people have actually served on jury duty?
I mean, I have family that served on it multiple times.
I've been.
Well, okay. So basically, I guess first thing I can say is that the court seemed to, or the courthouse, I guess, as like a, whoever, as far as like the administration that like runs the whole building or whatever, wasn't entirely on top of the ball, I guess, because a bunch of us, they bring all the new jurors in and they just sort of have you sit in a big room, and a bunch of us just sort of had to keep sitting there for a while because they apparently didn't get the calendar of trials or whatever for a while. So the trial that my group got put on, that didn't happen until like it was already in the afternoon. So we couldn't even finish jury selection until the next day. So I had to go back for that. Well, you know what I mean? Like basically everybody had to go back for that except the few people who got excused already. But yeah, I mean, it was kind of interesting because I've watched some streams of trials. I watched stuff from the Rittenhouse trial, stuff like that. I saw some of the jury selection there, and in that case, they did it like one at a time. They had like the jurors come up one at a time and ask some questions, whereas with the trial I was in, they just sort of asked general questions to like the whole room of like, hey, this guy has facial tattoos. Do you think that's going to bias you? There are cops involved. Is that going to bias you? Stuff like that, Um,
And
and
just bear in mind now that your trial is over. You are free from the obligation not to discuss it. So,
right.
if you want to
totally get to it.
discuss, okay.
Sorry, go ahead.
If you want to discuss like the trial and whatnot, go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, the general structure of being on the jury, or the general experience of being on the jury was kind of interesting. It was, in a way, it was almost kind of like going back to school. You have people who go up and they say stuff, and you have a notebook and you write stuff down based on what they're saying. If that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Beyond that, it was I don't know. I mean, the trial itself, or the situation that the defendant was in, was just kind of bad. You know what I mean? The thing that kicked everything off for him. I mean, okay, he was speeding down the highway, so obviously he's in the wrong there.
Yeah.
Right.
So the thing that kind of escalated everything beyond that point was that when some cops tried to pull him over, he didn't immediately pull over on the highway. And they basically decided because of that he was trying to evade them. So they called in a bunch of backup, and when he did eventually get off the highway and park, which, to be clear, like he took the next available exit and then took the two immediate right turns that came up and then found somewhere to park. But it was like, oh, but this is a pursuit now, which means that now that he's parked, this is a high-risk stop. So they got out of their car and immediately drew their guns.
Ooh.
Which he clearly didn't react to very well. And basically, the first thing they told him to do was to turn off his car and put his hands out the window, which he did do. But then after that, they started telling him to, toss the keys out of the car, so that he couldn't, start the car back up and try and drive away, and to get out of the car. And at that point, he stopped doing what they were telling him to do. So, all the backup and stuff started arriving. And eventually got to the point where they pepper sprayed him, which also didn't work. So he rolled up his window so they couldn't pepper spray him again. So they got out pepper ball guns. You know what those are, right? Should I explain those for people who don't know, who are listening?
Yes, because I'll pretend to know even though I don't. So this will be very very useful.
A pepper ball gun is something elites have that's less lethal. It's a less lethal tool because they don't call stuff non-lethal anymore because people still
because you can't die from it if you try hard enough.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a less lethal tool they have. It's kind of like a paintball gun, but what it shoots is basically filled with something like pepper spray. So they decided to use that on him, but first they had to make it so that they could use it on him because he rolled up his car window. So they had another guy bring out a second pepper ball gun that was loaded with something called glass breaker rounds, which I had never heard of before, but apparently it's a thing they have that is specifically used to break open car windows so that they can pepper spray or use pepper balls or whatever on people and probably tase them, I guess. So they tried to use that and failed to break his car window. Because apparently the San Diego Police Department is inept. So once that happened, go ahead.
I thought they're having a really hard time just
arresting a guy.
Hard.
Well, I mean, so here's the thing: is you'll find that the San Diego Police Department being inept is going to be a common theme here.
Oh, I mean, at this point, even before we continue, I'd say they should just shoot the car tires and then and then just like wait for him to get hungry. Don't know.
Well, so here's the thing: is they had spike strips behind his car, right?
Okay.
And they sort of tried to box him in with all the cop cars they brought in.
Okay.
Right. So the thing is that when they shoot the car window with a glass breaker round, he gets freaked out, assumedly, and turns his car back on, drives onto the sidewalk, immediately turns, obviously, so he doesn't hit the building in front of him. Proceeds to weave through a bunch of parked cop cars, manages to narrowly weave through a white SUV being used by a news team and an unmarked police car. And when I say narrowly, I mean he actually clipped the back right bumper of the SUV and tore it off, and then drove off and actually escaped the police because, as I said, apparently the San Diego Police Department is like the Keystone Cops or whatever.
This is very sad and pathetic for the police department, to be perfectly honest.
I was gonna say this sounded like, with the initial chase, this sounded like something you'd see on Cops, and then but then him escaping, I don't think they'd show that.
There was literally I got to see body cam footage from one of the cops. When the guy drives off, the cop runs to his car and drops his body cam somehow. Rapidly, scrambles to pick it up, picks it up, and then drops it again before he manages to finally get in his car and drive off. And they lost the guy.
I thought you said the guy threw out his keys, so how did he escape?
No, he didn't throw out his keys. They told him to, but he wouldn't.
Okay.
I mean, it's a common knowledge you're always supposed to keep a spare set of keys.
So
were they trained at the U.S. Army's military police school by any chance? I could expect.
I mean, you say the joke about having a spare key, but my dad used to own a car that had a valet key in the back of the fob for the unlock lock buttons. So technically, he could take out that key at the fob, throw out his keys, and still have a functioning key to start the car.
So basically, there were 4 charges. There was evading the police, which was the initial thing, which was like, well, no.
Obvious.
So the charges in order, right? The first charge number 1, was assault with a deadly weapon, specifically a vehicle, because that's apparently like legally a special add-on, I guess.
Welcome to California.
Deadly weapon, yeah.
I think that's just. Oh.
We found him guilty of that, which I was thinking about it earlier today, and I'm not actually happy with that anymore. I was arguing against it along with a couple other people, and the other jurors won me around by making a point of the fact that he recklessly drove through the intersection, knowing that there potentially could have been someone he could have hit.
Well, that's just negligence, though. That's not like
well,
assault.
no. The way the assault charges are the assault charges worded is a little. It's not really what you would expect.
Yeah.
The issue that I think I've realized since is that one of the components of the assault charge is essentially that he had to have had the ability to hurt somebody, and since there was clearly there was nobody. It doesn't seem that there was anybody driving through the intersection when that happened. That would seem to not meet that requirement. But that's why I agreed to find him guilty on that, and I'm not happy with myself having thought about that more. And I guess I'm gonna have to live with that. So
now I'm curious. Did they pay you for your jury duty? Because I know not all states pay their jurors, which is.
My company is supposed to pay me. I didn't really care about that because basically they give you like a time card, right? That you're supposed to get marked, and I forgot to bring it on my second day of jury duty, and I'm in a situation where I don't have to pay a lot of the expenses that other people might, so I didn't really care that much. But apparently my work still wants me to bring some proof or whatever and give me the money anyway, so whatever, I'm going to go find like the badge or whatever, bring it next week.
Okay.
Jury duty is such an unnecessary hassle for so many people.
I mean,
Of course, what was the second charge?
The second one was evading the police, which we basically immediately agreed when we got to that one that that was, a load of nonsense, to put it nicely. That charge absolutely should not have been given to him. In my opinion, the prosecutor should be embarrassed to have brought that charge forward and continued with it. Because basically all the testimony we were given about it, the defense attorney essentially just ripped in half when she was cross-examining the prosecution's witnesses. Because it essentially all revolved around he didn't pull over on the highway and didn't pull over on the city street after he got off the highway. Despite the fact that the cops were aware, two cops who initially saw him were both aware that oh crap, sorry, this has nothing. Anyway, sorry. Both cops involved were aware that other cops who have pulled over people on the highway have been hit by cars while doing so, and that in other situations where people have been pulled over on the highway, most people have been hit by cars during that traffic stop. Both cops admitted that they have never pulled over anybody on that stretch of that highway. The most any of them could really come to beyond that point was, well, but I've seen California Highway Patrol do it. But that's kind of a moot point because they are not California Highway Patrol. They're San Diego Police Department. And then beyond that, it was just really obvious that they really couldn't have told whether or not the guy actually had any opportunity to park anywhere. Like one of the two cops was saying, "Oh no, I'm sure," and then the moment the defense attorney came up and started asking him questions about how sure he was, that fell apart. So after that was hit and run for hitting the SUV and not coming back, which we all obviously found him guilty on. The defense didn't even try to argue against that one. And then resisting a peace officer, which we also found him guilty on because that was essentially revolving around him refusing to comply afterwards when he was parked and they were telling him to get out of the car.
Interesting. So, what do you think about your experience serving on a jury? Would you do it again?
He has no
probably.
choice.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's definitely part of it. But I mean, it's a civic duty. It's, everybody's got a right to a jury trial. And for that to happen, you need people to serve on juries.
I guess one question that I wanted you to ask. So that that first charge, what was it? The one of the stipulations was ability to assault. Now, when that was explained to you, was it explained in the sense that, like, the ability to assault in the sense that I have a hammer and I have the ability to thwack you and I'm clearly a dangerous individual, or is it ability to assault and that there needs to be somebody there for me to thwack with?
I believe it was more of the latter. I believe the analogy one of the attorneys gave was if I have a baseball bat and you're standing at the other end of the baseball field and I swing the baseball bat in your direction, that's not assault because you're on the other end of the baseball field. And there's no chance I could have hit you.
So, I don't know. Everything.
The issue I have to elaborate, because you asked, right, is essentially what happened is we found him guilty of assaulting a hypothetical person who was not present. That's what I real. That's what the argument that won me over in the moment ultimately boils down to.
You can't assault a person that isn't there. I hope the guy appeals that and gets that.
I do too. I'm very, as I said, I'm not happy. I'm no longer happy with that that verdict, but it's not like I can do anything about it now.
Yeah, how many years or how long is that, like, a prison sentence for? Is it like a felony or a misdemeanor?
I would assume it's assault with a deadly weapon. I would assume it's a felony. I don't know what he was sentenced to. We all left the prison after the verdict was given.
Okay. Yeah. I guess.
If somebody wants to look up the California law on that and put it in conference text chat for us so we can see how long this poor guy's going to jail for.
Yep, it's a felony. It's a fine of up to $10,000 and can be up to 2 to 3 years in state prison.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh,
I guess I feel a little better. I assumed it would have been like 10 at least. Yeah. But I don't know. I guess I don't know that much about how the system works.
Yeah, I assume, like, if you actually, I would have thought 10 years would be more for if you actually did, like, hit the guy and actually were there.
Well, right. That's the thing, is there was no. I'm what part of it is I'm hoping the judge would be lenient, given that nobody was actually injured.
Yeah.
Don't bad coaching. I took a class on law and I still don't understand it, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, if I knew for certain that we were actually going to have this topic, I might invite my cousin who's a lawyer up, but he's not here, and I don't think he uses Discord because he has, like, a life or something. Anyways,
I did.
I mean,
There was one interesting element to the experience that wasn't directly about the jury trial itself, or the being on the jury itself. Just something I noticed during jury selection. Well, part of it was just you get to meet some interesting people. But one interesting thing I noticed, I think, I don't necessarily know. I mean, it's like it's a small sample size, obviously, so it's kind of, it's an anecdote, not a statistic or whatever. But obviously, one of the things that you get asked when they're doing jury selection is whether you can abide by the whole the standard of needing to have needing to be beyond a reasonable doubt to find the guy guilty, right? And it seemed to me that most of the people there who said that they might have trouble with that were East Asia. And I actually wound up talking to one of them because he was an older guy who said he works in a science field, which I was interested in. He's from Taiwan and talked about how the system works very differently there. So I don't know if there's anything really to that. It was just something I noticed and thought it might be a little interesting.
I mean, I don't know. It's probably a cultural thing. Apparently, with Napoleon.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, Napoleon's code. I mean, I don't know how true this is, but apparently it's that you have to be proven beyond a reasonable doubt innocent, because otherwise,
what I've heard.
Otherwise they wouldn't be suspects, now would they? I know, because
Exactly.
why would you hold an innocent person in prison, before a trial if there wasn't,
Right.
I think
I think
God.
Yeah,
I think that's the way that works. Whereas our system is obviously, 100% without a reasonable doubt guilty.
The reason why that came up, I'm now remembering, it wasn't quite just they were asking if we could abide by that standard, but it was specifically they were asking if we could. They're asking that in the context of the defendant not testifying for himself, and whether we would be able to essentially not hold that against him, because you have a constitutional right not to testify in your own trial.
Yeah.
And that, I think, was the point where some people were saying they would have trouble with that, including the guys I was talking about. And that was specifically where that guy was coming from, because he was saying in Taiwan, you actually have to go up and defend yourself. The fact that you've been charged is essentially treated as evidence against you, apparently.
Which is really interesting in and of itself. And let's take this discussion to a wider thing. Should we have jury trials, or should we have judge trials as the norm?
I think jury trials, as far as we do them currently, I think the way we currently do things is pretty good. I don't personally think that there's a need to change that.
An argument can be made that juries are inexperienced, as they are not legal experts, therefore cannot professionally define the law. That being said,
that's why the law is defined to them. As they put it for us, the point of the jury is to decide the truth of the facts in the case, and nothing else.
Yeah, but the problem with judge-only trials is you're open to more abuse and corruption, because at least with the jury, it's very easy to hold a jury accountable. If you have a supreme judge, that judge can be bought, bribed, or just simply have it out for whoever is being convicted.
Well, I think part of the key point is that the jury is specifically, as worded in the Constitution, a jury of your peers. It is just on average, the average people from your community. And I think there is definitely something important about having that be the case.
And actually,
not intended.
a historical tidbit on that from from monarchist standpoint, until like either the 60s or the 70s or in the UK, if somebody was suing a lord, or a lord came up in trial as a defendant, the jury would be made up of other lords, because that, trial by your peers thing,
Right.
the
given
nobles
that
were his
that's
peers.
given that that's a legally distinct that would be a legally distinct status, I would imagine that would be the case. That's not too surprising to me, although I was not specifically aware that was the case until just now.
Yeah. So I think that for this question, we'll go down the list, and I'll let Darth, and then me, and then Victor, and then Will state their position, because Coach Undyne's already kind of stated his take on jury.
Just to go off on that last point, in the U.S. military judiciary system, the trial by your peers thing actually does apply based on your rank. So junior enlisted can request a jury of other junior enlisted. Non-commissioned officers can request other non-commissioned officers as their jury, officers, etc.
Interesting.
But that's per request. Most of the time it goes to a tribunal, and that's where, before the tribunal, you would request a trial by your peers. Most soldiers, unfortunately, that go up for cases don't realize that, and most of the time their JAG Corps officer, that's their attorney, doesn't also inform them, or doesn't even know himself of that, because most of the time you're given a fresh lieutenant out of law school. But also, with the whole like judge versus jury trial thing, I think I kind of take a nuanced opinion. I agree with having a jury trial in the cases of, if you have a well moralized people that I would say are actually pretty more homogenous in beliefs and in community. But I would go for a judge trial, and I would encourage that for a unhomogeneous society, and a society with lacking morals, especially as the U.S. kind of decays in morals these days.
Could I respond to that briefly?
I guess, yeah, sure. You're a special guest.
I think that, or I feel, I suppose, that the jury selection process addresses that to an extent. Because, among other things, like I said, they're asking you basic questions about whether you can abide by the legal standards. So there is an extent of, they're going to essentially be chucking out anybody who can't really accept the way things are supposed to work as far as all that goes. I suppose it does work on the honor system. You could make an argument against that there, but still, at the same time, a lot of people find jury duty a nuisance. So there's definitely plenty of reason to be honest about anything that might get you out of jury duty. So
now, not to derail the conversation, but who exactly sits on a military tribunal? Because I've never quite understood that.
So, in most cases, it is high-ranking officers, which make up the tribunal. It's like a council of judges that are, typically they're not supposed to be in your own chain of command. So, like, they're not supposed to be your battalion, brigade, or division commander. They're supposed to be anonymous officers that don't even know you. So it'll vary. Most of the time, they're like lieutenant colonels and up. Sometimes you'll see majors and below, but that's in more rare cases where they're just kind of short on officers.
So thank you very much for coming up here, Crochet. We'll get to Charles's opinion about jury versus judge trial now. Charles, go ahead.
All right. I guess what Darth said about a nice, moralistic people on a jury, about that judged rule. I think that's something I can sympathize with. Although for whatever reason, I kind of always thought I would waive my right to a jury trial. Just something about the whole jury trial process. Um, because I mean, the thing with the jury is, I mean, obviously they're not going to select an absolute moron. At least I hope they wouldn't. Select somebody who looks like he has an IQ of 5. But um, you know, you know, there's also a thing about what exactly does a trial of your peers exactly mean? Because in our American society, where we don't have much of a nobility, there's not really a definition there, because your peer could be anyone. I mean, because we have we don't have a legally codified class structure. So does your peer just mean someone from your area? Does it mean someone within your profession? Does it and that's
Typically speaking, a peer means someone who lives in the jurisdiction which your trial is being held.
yeah, I guess, I mean, that's
But it would be kind of humorous if a jury of your peers means if you're a doctor, then your jury is filled with other doctors.
we find this man guilty we find this man not guilty of medical malpractice. So hopefully if it comes up, they'll just dismiss it on precedent. I don't know. I mean, that's sort of the thing. I mean, if I was, I mean, obviously they want non-biased juries as much as possible. But that might not realistically be possible. Like, I mean, if you have somebody who murdered a doctor, and then but then if you doctors get on your jury, there might be something there, and there's only so much you can do to counteract that. So I mean, I don't know. I mean, a trial by judges, maybe, if you have multiple judges who are essentially serving as both judges and jury, but not executioner, because I don't imagine a bunch of people who are in their 60s and wearing powder wigs could effectively swing the axe. But
he who passes the sentence must swing the sword.
all right, so I guess if you're a judge, you best start getting to the gym every day, because otherwise you're going to be forced into early retirement.
God, give him a 1911. Let him shoot the convict in the head. Get it done and over with.
I mean, that's Mongolian style execution. Apparently, they don't even deal with. I mean, I just heard this. I don't know if it's true or not. They don't even deal with firing squads. They just tie you to a pole and they just load one bullet into a pistol and just shoot you in the head and get it over with.
No,
I mean, in Utah, you can still get a firing squad.
Why waste the time tying you to the pole? Just take you outside and pull.
Yeah. So yeah. Anyways, so I guess to not ramble on too long, I'm not exactly
Hey, I'm just gonna say something. I request trial by other Army vets. Everybody comes in half drunk. Yeah, we find this guy innocent. He's one of our bros down at the VA.
When we're gonna have a trial for mismanagement of the Department of Veterans Affairs. Anyways, I guess to sum up my position, it's not something I given too much thought. But I guess I'm not as unfailingly pro jury trial as perhaps your average American who's been brought up with the American education system is, and that I think there definitely is merit to just trial by a judge. And I guess I'd like to see historical precedent with how these sorts of things worked in the medieval times, like where did the jury system as we know it exist, or was it just judges, or how that worked?
It really depends on, of course, which region you're talking about, because the thing about medieval Europe, it was not uniform.
Yeah.
You go to England, that's actually where we get a jury trial system from. You did see that often in medieval England, but you go to a place like, well, most of the German principalities where it'd actually be your local noble was also your judge. So he would judge your case.
Well,
And
that makes.
then,
Oh,
oh, well, it's just the duty of nobility, because same with royalty, because a royal is also the chief justice in his dominion. That's why he doesn't have a Supreme Court over him. He has a Supreme Court under him,
I
and he is
am the court.
yeah he is the court, and the same powers go to the nobility, because they are also high the chief justice in their fiefs. So
Oh yeah, and this is also why, and I was actually going to make that point. That you know, these people are like the king's justices or whatnot, because they're essentially just acting on his behalf, because it can't be everywhere at once. And that's also why it's, you know, Her Majesty's police department, even though, you know, Her Majesty isn't going to be leading a drug bust anytime soon. Although that would be hilarious.
I don't think that
Majesty's
she
police
should be
department
doing
raising.
much of any enforcement of law except for signing paperwork at the age, especially at the age of 96.
No, but I mean that's what's so humorous. You know, she gets in there with the with the breaching shotgun. She busts open the padlock. She's like, "This is the royal police, and under my name, you're under arrest." And then she pours tea and biscuits.
Okay, and let's now there is such a like I like the jury system in and of itself, but I don't like the fact that the jury has to be unanimous for there to be a sort of verdict, as it were. I would much prefer a juror be able to say no, and if the rest of the jury finds them guilty or thinks the other person's crazy, then the decision of the majority should stand. But I can see how that would cause a lot more problems than it's worth. So this is why I don't think that my solution will be very popular.
Unanimous
I mean,
has to do with the whole without a reasonable shadow of a doubt thing, where it has to be.
And of course, if we were a monarchy, I would want the nobles to be the chief justice, assuming they know the law.
Well, I would assume that they would, because they're the one always enforcing it every single day. You'd hope.
well, I mean,
Yeah,
that's
you
the
would.
thing with when they made Saul king in Israel. I mean, I don't want to get in trouble for interpreting scripture outside the nails to consent of the fathers, but I think Father Mike mentioned it, maybe. So, but yeah, I mean, who was it? Samuel, the prophet Samuel. He basically wrote an ordinance saying that the king has to, you know, read the law at all times, or you know, read it day and night, because you know, if you're administering justice, you better know what that is.
Absolutely. And it appears that, especially in recent cases, some of them might not know what the law is and might put their political bent on it, which is a mark against jury trials.
Although, in
So
fairness, if you have judges that are just as corrupt, it could be the same sort of dealio. But that's just a fault of the system as a whole, and you're going to find problems anywhere.
I mean,
Absolutely.
it's human nature that institutions fall, but into corruption, that's just the fallen nature of man. But also, just as an example of a monarch that actually didn't read his own constitution, Kaiser Wilhelm II, he said that the constitution just does not matter. I am the emperor, which I just think is a Chad move.
I mean, I don't know, written constitutions for nobles. But anyway, yeah. So I guess Vic, did you have anything more to say before we pass it on to Will?
Just one more thing. If you're going to be a noble, you should probably know exactly what your responsibilities are. Charles Coulomb gave a story about Kaiser Karl not wanting to accept an honorary title because he wanted to know exactly what was required of him when he got that title. And of course, the Constitution was written in Old Burgundian, so he had to learn Old Burgundian. And it took him a long time to learn Old Burgundian to be able to read and understand the rules of this honorary title, the name of which escapes me right now.
Or Grand Knight of the Order of the Golden Fleece.
Thank you. Grand Knight of the Order of the Golden Fleece. He wanted to understand all the regulations surrounding that before he accepted, which I think is a very noble thing. And if you're a noble, or even if you're not a noble, but especially if you're a noble, you should read every single jot and tittle before you agree to be a part of something or do something. Like, for example, be part of the Knights of Columbus.
That can be complicated with our common law system because so much of our legal procedures is based off of years and years and years of cases that have built on each other.
I mean, I just say throw them common law for dummies and say, read it front to back. There'll be a test on Tuesday and call it a day.
Well, we have these massive codexes that are called reporters, where basically every case in every court in the U.S. is listed and sorted based off of the district and the jurisdiction and everything, but not a lot of people know where to find these.
Exactly, and if you're a paralegal, or if you're a law student, or heck, even if you're a first-year lawyer at a big law firm, you will be poring over those recorder books, page by page by page, through LexisNexis or on a very similar source, in order to find what you need.
Let me tell you, it's not fun.
Oh, please, tell me about it. I myself know the horror of using LexisNexis to read up on cases for classes in my undergraduate degree. It is quite the experience.
There's no search option. You have to go through it by hand. You can't search a number or search a case by name. You have to go through it by hand.
All the inconveniences of having an actual book with none of the benefits. I'll take 600.
And of course, the online LexisNexis is actually a really, really nice service. You actually can search by name or by case number.
Oh, well, that's no fun.
Oh, yeah.
Of course.
Sad part. That's the really sad part. A lot of these premium services that help you with that, they're not free. They're behind paywall.
Yes, and fortunately, my college got a LexisNexis subscription to everyone through their library service, so we could do all of this. If I want to sign up for something like LexisNexis, or sign up for the other really, really big service whose name is escaping me right now that every single lawyer uses, which costs a fortune.
It just feels wrong with me that since we have a common law system and all of our legal procedures are based off of precedent, the idea that people have to pay in order to access that priceless legal precedent.
I mean, in fairness, if you're one who's actually supposed to like know that stuff. I mean, I'm sure it's going to be more accessible to you, but I mean, it wouldn't be the first time. I mean, everybody's expected to know. What's something that everybody's expected to know how to do in the society? I mean, everybody's expected to know how to follow the traffic books, but you can't just go down uh, and actually no, you can't. Shoot, never mind. I was gonna say you can't just look online for your copy of what every driver must know, but Michigan SOS has it online, so because we have a secretary, because we never bothered to form our own what do you guys call it, DMV? We just left it to the
or
secretary.
MVA, depending on the state.
Yeah, we just left it to the Secretary of State and called it a day. So, jokes on you guys. We have an SOS.
That should tell you everything wrong with the state of Michigan.
Hey, you know what? Just because we're Great Lakes State, and that means that we're going to always be associated with a shipwreck, no matter the ship's actual home port. Actually, I don't know how many ships actually are home ported in Michigan. I mean,
You're associated with the failure of the American automotive industry. Nobody cares about your ships.
Okay. You know what? If it wasn't, our ships are what fueled our automotive industry. In fact, Ford, the car company, owned a Great Lakes freighter to transport the iron ore pellets, I guess taconite, to Detroit. You know what? Yeah. So I think that the Great Lakes shipping industry is vastly overlooked, and anyone who is a resident of a Great Lakes state and who doesn't care about the Great Lakes shipping industry is not a true resident of the Great Lakes states. I'm sorry.
I can hear you're coping over the sound of my drinkable tap water. Thank you very much.
Okay. That's one too far. But also, Ohio, for the record, was one of the main builders of a lot of Great Lakes freighters. So the Carl D. Bradley was the darling of Lorraine, Ohio. It sank, but I mean that wasn't really Lorraine's fault. It was overdue for a refit. It was actually gonna get a refit. But then they sent it out on one more trip for the season because I think maybe one of the ships that was going to do it was unavailable, and that just happened to be the time it sank in a storm. So, with 33 out of 35 hands.
Of course, Maryland's maritime industry is very well known.
Yeah, but your ships don't look as good as ours.
Hey, we have the best seafood, the Maryland blue crab, and we have the best flag.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you may have the best flag. I mean, Michigan's flag is just the state seal on a blue background, which is just stupid. But and Ohio, and I will concede that Ohio actually has a cool flag. But okay, the shipping industry in the Great Lakes is superior simply because no, it's not really even it's not somebody said that it's dependent on the St. Lawrence Seaway. It's not dependent on the St. Lawrence Seaway. It's completely self-sustaining on its own, because the whole point of the Great Lakes shipping industry was to get the raw materials, well, I mean the later stages, is just to get the raw materials from the north, from Duluth or whatnot, down to the industrial ports like Detroit and Cleveland and all that. Okay, that's the shipping industry. We do not need any foreign trading salties coming on to our Great Lakes, and we don't need that. Okay, we have our lumber ships. We have well, not anymore. Those are all kind of gone now because our lumber industry crashed because, chopping down all your trees happens to lead to you not having any more trees to chop down. But, we have everything we need. I have no idea how we got on this tangent, and I don't even know if it's Will's turn or if it's Victor's turn.
My turn now.
Your turn now.
I believe I've never actually ceded the floor to Will, but I will do so now.
Yeah.
Okay, so for jury trials versus judicial trials, I think there's a lot of pros and cons for each. With judicial trials, you have a bit more of a legal expert handling the case. But like I said, it's probably more prone for abuse and corruption and such because it's easier to bribe a single judge rather than a jury. But at the same time, with a jury trial, they're not as well versed on law and legal matters. They can be swayed. They're, as we saw with the case of the officer that was charged with the murder of George Floyd. I forget his name, but they can
Derek Chauvin.
what?
Derek
Chauvin.
Chauvin.
Derek Chauvin. But yeah, the jury can be threatened or swayed by popular sentiment or even by threats of violence, as we saw. And I still argue that there could have been a very good case of juror intimidation for that legal case. So, honestly, I think it could really be summed up as it should depend on what case it is, what the convict is being charged with, and whether or not a jury or a judge would be best suited to adequately address the needs of the case.
All right. I say the future is just to have cold, hard, calculating robots with no sense of sympathy or anything, and they shall decide it all. And if there's a system breakdown and you get condemned to 15 years in jail for missing a parking ticket, well, that's just your problem. I mean, sorry, that's just the judge's ruling.
They actually did try and create an AI robot that I can't remember if it investigated people or whether or not it actually charged them for the crimes. But it actually, after running the simulated cases, it came out with a racial bias. Not.
You know, I know things. You know, I know it's a common trope of sci-fi. Maybe I don't know if it's a common trope of sci-fi, but I think it's a trope in sci-fi that the things that we create are flawed in the sense of they reflect their makers. Yeah, if that's true. No, I don't know. I don't know. An AI with a racial bias. I don't. It doesn't. They say don't see color. It can't see color. It doesn't have eyes.
It just knows statistics.
Despite making okay.
All right, so shall we move on to our next actually scheduled topic? Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We had to take a break there. Sorry about that. Now we are back with our next actually scheduled topic, which is the new Disinformation Committee, which is going to look at, well, disinformation and misinformation, also known as the Ministry of Truth.
Now,
Or
guys,
MOT
let's
for short.
also we're gonna get a new dictionary every few days. It's gonna get a little bit shorter, and as they make the English language more efficient for the people, everybody's gonna get excited when the new dictionary is published, right, guys? Straight from the Ministry of Truth.
Yes. My latest edition of the Newspeak Dictionary has been delivered by the milkman. He is very good and efficient at delivering the post, and he is the milkman, and I regret making the error of calling him a postman.
He is the milkman. His milk is delicious.
Yes, the milk he delivers us. The envelopes are white, so obviously he's the milkman because the envelopes and the milk are both white, so therefore it's the same thing. I regret trying to distinguish between the two professions.
You get milk in a envelope?
No, 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 no.
Yeah, yes,
I-
it's the newest innovation, guys. We're gonna have milk in envelopes.
You know, it's kind of sad we don't have milkmen anymore that actually drop off like glass bottles of milk to your door. My grandpa did that for a while, actually.
That's because, well, we put preservatives in milk now, and we prefer to mass ship milk all across different parts of the country instead of locally sourcing anything these days.
Mm, delicious.
Anyway,
Anyways, back to MOT.
let's actually get serious here. Talk about this committee. I have a few questions for the administration about this committee. The first is, what do you define as misinformation?
Anything
well,
that disagrees with our worldview.
Yes, it depends on who's head of the Disinformation Board, because her worldview will be the one that determines the regime's worldview.
That is a bit concerning.
Well, I mean, it's not supposed to be.
That's what an ideological state does. Every ideological state does that throughout history, including our own. Like, we used to do this covertly, where the media was our ministry of truth, where 90% of the media was on board with a narrative, and then one media source, most of the time it was Fox News, would do a separate one, and then it would be discredited by the other ministries of truth. But now we have one officially under the DHS where they can send you a SWAT team at any point in time to come raid your house because you're spreading misinformation.
Yeah, I mean, and this is especially kind of concerning because the same people who are pushing for this believe truth is relative and deny an objective truth. I mean, I don't know about the specific individuals, but I mean that's just sort of mainstream leftist ideology that there is no objective truth and everything's relative. So it's just my truth that the sky is orange. What are you going to do about it, coppers?
Well, if the regime says tomorrow that the sky is green, the sky is green.
Yes, it's a lovely green sky, and at night the sky is neon.
It's turquoise skies, guy. This is what the Ministry of Truth says.
So it has been decreed forever and all time until Tuesday.
This is literally like what they try to characterize the Catholic Church as being during the Middle Ages. Like the Catholic Church was the one determining truth, and now they're the ones doing the exact same thing. So that they claim that we used to do, even though we never did that.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to bring up one last point, and then because I don't think we're going to be spending too much time on this because we have another topic to bring up.
A couple topics.
Yeah, a couple topics, one of which we actually need Darth here for, so we may want to get to that as soon as possible. The last thing I'll bring up here is, okay, it's bad that Biden's doing it. Would it be bad if Trump is doing it? And I would take the position that I'm not sure, like, if it's bad that Biden's doing it, then should it stand to reason that it's bad if Trump would have done it?
No, because we have to be Machiavellian about this.
No, I mean, really, the validity of any such organization that is trying to say what is true and what isn't, it all depends on whether or not that organization is itself aligned with objective truth. I mean, when the church banned books, the church, having the revealed truth, saw that those books were in error. Now, and so they were banned and burned and stuff. Now, with this disinformation board or whatever, these people are not in line with objective truth. Therefore, they are liable, if not prone, to ban things that are in fact the truth. And so therefore it's wrong. I mean, I mean, and I know that the libertarian, the lingering libertarian and relativist in me that I was brought up to be. Well, my dad didn't bring me up to be a libertarian, but that libertarian attitude that we're all brought up with in this country is screaming and kicking against me that no, all viewpoints are equally valid. But I mean, it's really, is this organization sticking to objective truth, the truth, or not. Because if it is, then okay, then it has a purpose to existing, and it will probably self-regulate itself because, somebody thinks the sky is pink, then, I mean, that's not really much of a problem because he's just an idiot. But if it's out of line with objective truth, then that is inherently problematic because they're going to, well, as I've already said, go after people who are in line with the truth. So that's what I had to say on that, and I guess I'll have Will say something because he hasn't had a chance to talk in this segment. Even if you have no opinion, speak something. The Ministry of Truth demands it.
It's very dangerous for any government, regardless of what system or who's in power, to start regulating information and what is true, what isn't true. Primarily because the government can manipulate that to their vested interest if necessary. And yeah, this is kind of more of a libertarian stance. But I dislike the idea that any governing body can hold an authority on what is true and what isn't true. And honestly, that should be up to the informed public to come up with their own conclusions and come up with their own opinions. And that's why we have things and ideas such as journalistic integrity. And in the 21st century, with the massive amount of knowledge, the idea of a Ministry of Truth existing is horrific in the sense that we, as a society, have built a world where information is free and easy to access, and the idea that a government would therefore try and regulate it seems dark, bleak, and exploitive. If that makes sense.
Yes, but you had to remember, Comrade Government doesn't like the truth about it getting out, because obviously Comrade Government has never done anything wrong. We love Comrade Government.
Comrade Government can shove it.
Shh.
I mean, I always just take the stance that with Thomas Hobbes, all people are evil, and it is society. We as a society have to make people good. I'm paraphrasing Hobbes. I actually didn't read that part, but I do agree with his synopsis. And that's actually like pretty much the fall nature of man, that all people are evil. So yeah.
I mean, it's more of a all men have the capacity to do evil and will inevitably choose evil, not that they're just de facto evil. Yeah,
well,
we're predisposed to choose sin in some capacity or another, not that
that's kind of what I meant.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I'm for the Ministry of Truth as long as it's a right-wing Catholic integralist state. I'm against the Ministry of Truth if it is a left-wing cringe liberal regime.
And we can get into something some other time of why that isn't hypocritical, even though it sounds hypocritical once again to our American training.
Well, the thing is, people, you got to think more like a elite. You got to think more like you have this more Italian elite theory you need to get into, guys. Okay, where you have a set of elites that guide the entire society. We have this already. It's called the bourgeoisie and the liberal establishment, like Soros, Biden, Obama, and this entire clique. So we need to instead install our own elite and take over, but that's a lot of legwork.
It is a lot of legwork, and I think that there are a lot of people, I think, that are trying to do that sort of legwork. And speaking of legwork, let's transition from legwork to gun work and talk about your new rifle, Darth.
It looks stupid. It looks hard to clean, and I know I probably won't be seeing it for a decade.
Let's get into some more specifics, if you can, about this new rifle.
I'm actually going to like pull up the image of the rifle so that way I can actively critique it. Because like I've of course only seen
put it in our server somewhere so we can have a look at it as well.
Now, my big question is, I understand why they're replacing the 5.56, but why are they trying to get rid of 7.62? It seems the 308 round in the 7.62 cartridge has been the workhorse of the U.S. for, wow, almost over 100 years, it seems.
No. 30-06 and 308 are two different things.
So
308 really only came around in the 50s.
No, 30-06 is a 308 caliber bullet.
Yeah, but they're not compatible. 30-06 is a longer cartridge, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, but the caliber is still 308.
But 30-06 more kaboomba than 308.
I mean, so with this new rifle, it's also going to be a new round, which is going to be like a 6.6 millimeter, I think, cartridge, which is you're already going from an intermediate, like I think a 5.56 is technically considered an intermediate round.
Yeah.
Well then 7.62, commonly what was used in the Mosin and Kalashnikov. That is I forget the exact definition, but it's above an intermediate round. So we're getting the intermediate round with a 6 point something.
Or for the sake of
millimeter.
we'll just call it the I squared.
Yeah, the I squared round. 6.8 actually. I'm reading from the Navy Times. So I don't know if this
what
is
do
the
they know
Navy
about it?
well, the Navy is probably going to be adopting it alongside us because if the Army changes rounds, all the other branches change.
I remember back in the day, the Navy always was like stuck 10 years behind the Army in adopting any small arms because Congress hated it and wouldn't give it any money.
Well, that's the Marines. But the Marines, funny thing, they actually have a brand new rifle they introduced like a couple of years ago. So actually, we were lagging behind in terms of new rifles. I forget. I think it's like an HK 216, I believe, is the Marine. A new standard issue rifle. Of course, it actually hasn't made out to many units. Many Marine units are still using M4s and M16s. Same with the Army. Like, there's a lot of units that are still to this day using M16s because they haven't received M4s yet.
The HK 416?
I don't quite remember what the Marines' new rifle is, but it's like HK. I mean, you might be right with the 416, but I said 216. But
yeah.
whatever.
Let's see.
I love how the Navy Times has a section called Your Army.
Yeah, I mean, the branches like cover each other's stuff all the time. So yeah, whatever. I really don't care because I know that like I may never even see this rifle in my military career in all honesty, and I'm still only at the beginning. Because the thing is like it takes a long time to circulate weapons. Like my unit just got brand new M4s and literally like a few months ago. So I doubt the Army is going to be like, well, we just gave you brand new out of the manufacturer M4s. You do not need this new rifle. So we're probably going to be in an intermediate stage where we have both rifles. One unit is going to get the new ones at a time as they're manufactured essentially, and replace the M4s that are still in circulation. I could see this easily being a 10-year project, maybe even 15 years, as it was with the M16, which the M16 is still in use in some places, so it hasn't even finished circulating.
And if I'm not mistaken, this isn't. They're going to just formally adopt and start swapping over from the M4. I think they're issuing it out in a wider basis to see if the Army wants to just fully switch over. Although I could be wrong there.
Well, I mean, the way this thing always goes, it's always the operators that get it first, aka operator is a term that is given to SF, and like SF and Rangers and more elite forces. So they're going to be, it's going to go to SF first, then it's going to go to the Ranger Battalion. It's going to trickle its way down through the more elite units before it gets to the actual line units. And then then the line units, it's going to go to the support units from there. So
my question is, why does it take 10 years for a new rifle to get into the hands of every battalion?
Because there's not a need to because there's no urgency to just manufacture millions of them. Yeah,
the M16, it was because the Army was a very, very, very unnecessarily big stickler about everything having to do with the rifle.
Must have fail button.
So with the M4, this was way early on, but I think it was in 2003 we still had the first M4, now we have the M4A1, but the M4 initially had a 3-round burst option, which was just it was useless essentially in urban warfare. So then they had to halt production on standard M4s, and then they instead replaced it with a fully automatic one, which the M4s already in circulation had to get their trigger mechanism replaced. And then they had to start production on the M4A1s. Slightly different production process, not much difference, but that was a hiccup in it, and any hiccup in procurement takes months up to years in Washington bureaucracy. And then, I mean, unless they're truly dedicated, like they put a ton of money into mass production of this new rifle, I still expect it to take easily 10 years for every single unit to have it, maybe even up to 15 years. Because you're going to get, like I said, it's going to trickle through the units based on need. And it's going to get to the support companies last. I probably expect like medical units and probably medical units will be like one of the last ones. Same with military intelligence units.
Oh, well, here's actually a question. So you know how towards the end of during World War II, they adopted the M1 carbine for rear line troops that weren't expected to get into combat, where they previously only had sidearms, and they decided to get them something a little more, useful at longer ranges. Do they still have a weapon to fill that role, or did they just get M4s?
Well, the M4s are going to remain in circulation until they actually get these new weapons and procurements.
Well, no, I mean, is there a specific a weapon that's designed to do the same job as the M1 carbine, which was to be a weapon for like the rear guard, like the rear troops, or did they just get the old weapons that the frontline troops don't get?
So the old weapons, we don't really have that concept anymore. It's kind of hard to explain because everybody got the M4s at least at some point in time. Like my unit was actually like one of the last units to get M4s. I actually wasn't in my current unit when they still had M16s, and when I got there, they just got the M4s. So that was at least nice that I didn't have to completely readjust how I shot to an M16, because an M16 versus an M4 is very different, at least for zeroing your weapon, and actually there's a few slight differences. But they do shoot the same round. So that was why that was also why the Army could kind of be a little bit lazier, as they use the same round. So
logistics.
Wasn't as much of a conflict of interest there. But with this new weapon system, they're probably going to have to issue them brigade by brigade, so that way you don't have some units in a brigade, because the U.S. Army these days, like, we're trying to go back to divisional organization, but we still use the brigade system that worked for us back when we were doing deployments to Afghanistan. But every brigade will probably be that's how I expect will be dispersed by brigade and not by individual company. That way, each brigade, when they deploy, they all have the same weapon system, same rounds, no confusion in logistics.
Now,
But I really don't know. Like I just don't know.
now, we getting a new LMG that comes with the rifle. Do you have anything to say about that? I thought it was that they were replacing the 7.62 round because I understand the 5.56. They were worried about armor penetration and accuracy over long distance, but the 7.62 has seemed to be the workhorse for the U.S. forever.
Yeah, I mean it was for especially our heavier weapon systems like our squad automatic weapons. I mean the M249 it wasn't okay. I actually never shot it, but I know how to maintain it, how to take it apart, reassemble it, etc. And then we also, some units were still using the 240, which is a slightly bigger squad automatic weapon than the 249. I don't know what the new LMG is going to be using.
I think it's using the same cartridge, isn't it?
It's using the same cartridge.
The same new cartridge. I didn't
the
hear this
6.8.
specifically, but yeah, I didn't hear this specifically, but I think it's. I'm going to guess they're doing this for logistic. I don't know, but I don't know. That's just guessing on my part.
I mean, that's a possibility, but I just say we don't need to replace the M249s. It's a fine weapon system, serves us well. This new one, I can just tell right now that's going to be a pain to clean. Probably like the bolt carrier in the new rifle will be fine to maintain, but the actual like geez, I'm tired, and I'm trying to describe weapons parts, and it's honestly like slipping my mind. But the grill where the barrel is, I'm tired. That's gonna be that I can tell right now that's gonna be a pain to remove and a pain to clean in there. I can tell that also this weapon system, since it's not gonna be black, unless it comes black and the whole tan thing is just a for show, for at least for display. I honestly hope it comes in black because then that will keep maintaining it a lot easier than trying to keep it that brown color. Like you mostly only paint your weapon systems if you're actually going to be using it a lot and you can maintain it properly. That's why you see SF guys paint their weapons, same with Rangers, but you don't really see infantry units paint their weapons too much. It depends unit to unit, but most of the time that they don't paint their weapons, they keep it black.
Now, what do you think of sites that the military also contracted out? This super, and might I say, completely unnecessarily advanced sight that they want to mount on this new rifle.
I mean, by looking at it, if they don't put irons on it, well, then what are you gonna do if if your optics essentially short circuits, gets you drop it and suddenly it's off? Because like the thing about like a red dot sight is it's very sensitive. Once you have it zeroed, if you drop it or if any sort of trauma comes to it, the dot will move, and now you don't have a zeroed weapon anymore to your eye. That's why you have the iron sights as a backup. And sometimes soldiers don't even like optics, and they just take it off and they use irons, which it's really just soldier dependent. And ACOGs are at least a little better, where ACOGs, they're not as sensitive to trauma, but they will also slightly move if you drop it, or if it receives some sort of impact. Essentially what I'm saying is you need your irons as a backup, so if they don't put irons on this rifle, that will probably get a lot of soldiers killed, in all honesty.
And I don't see any place for bayonet.
Yeah, if it doesn't have spaced amount of bayonet on it, is it really even a weapon?
Well, I mean,
mean,
did the army say they're going to try to get rid of those or something?
Technically, it depends on the unit too. Like my last unit had bayonets, but my supply NCO said he's never going to issue them out. They're going to remain locked away forever, he said. And then in my current unit, we don't have any bayonets. Not even in the cages. So it really is unit specific on that one.
And are we finished, Darth? Do you want to like? Do we have any more questions about the rifle for Darth, or?
I don't know. Is the suppressor internal? Please tell me. I mean, it looks removable. Please tell me it's removable.
Well, the reason why we're putting the Marines recently did a mass purchase of silencers because essentially they don't want soldiers going deaf. As much because even if you have hearing protection, it can still affect your hearing. I know this from firsthand experience. An M4, like it, you can still get hearing impairment. I've had some hearing loss already, and I'm only a couple years in. But yeah, they bought silencers to reduce that to a minimum. And if the army gets it too, I'll be actually kind of happy to shoot with silencers and no longer suffer from hearing loss, even with hearing protection on.
How does that work? Because obviously you're still going to need because like obviously at the range, most guys, standard civilian range, most guys, put or at least that's what I do. You put the those little ones you twist in your ears, and then you put the uncomfortable ones over that. But if you're in a combat situation, you're still supposed to be able to hear the other guys in your unit. So how do they balance that?
So I mean, we have the twisting ones. I forget what they're called exactly. I just know them as Ear Pro.
Yeah.
But our Ear Pro is meant so that way you can still pick up vocal tones, but it theoretically deafens all the high pitched sounds. So every shot, but doesn't always work all the time. So that's why we even get hearing loss even with ear protection and special forces operators and some and the Ranger Battalion. They have those fancy helmets that way they can have noise dampening essentially headphones on their helmet. But for the rest of us that don't have the luxury of getting those pretty snazzy helmets, we have to just deal with having regular Ear Pro.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. Like before, I don't know when we first started experimenting with ear protection, but it's kind of surprising how anyone from like the Napoleonic Wars, well, I mean muskets aren't as loud as. Well, I don't know. I've only shot one black powder weapon in my life, but anyways, I guess they're not as loud as like full-on rifles. But I mean, if you're in a World War I trench and all the artillery is going off, I'm surprised anybody came out of that with any hearing whatsoever.
I'm currently reading Storm of Steel, so that may come up. But Ernst Younger does complain about it.
Yes, and if it does come up, then please inform us when you find out. So I think that we should probably wrap up here if I'm assuming there's no objections, so...
let's move on to our last main topic.
What is our last main topic?
So it's come to light, and I'll post the link in the conference text chat, that U.S. intelligence told the Ukrainians where the Moskva was at the time so that's how the Ukrainians knew where it was and targeted it. And the article, it doesn't give a direct quote, but the article's from NBC or whatever. And they say, let me just pull it up. They say something to the effect of The U.S. did not know in advance Ukraine was going to target the Moskva, officials said, and it was not involved in the decision to strike. Okay, why would the Ukrainians ask for the location of the warship if they weren't going to, do something military to it? Like, did they say, hey, Ivan has a distant cousin on the Moskva and it's his birthday. We want to send him a card. No, of course they're going to of course they're going to try to strike it or whatever. Or do
Charles, they're intentionally playing stupid. It's plausible deniability, my dude.
Yeah, but still, I don't know.
I just think it's funny because this is the second time Russia has lost a major warship to a nation that has no standing navy.
What was the first time?
Oh. No, they just lost another one.
What?
I didn't realize we were talking about the Moskva. Wait, there was some.
We're talking about the ship that sunk on April 14th. The one we talked about a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, they just lost another one. It was called the Makarov. Admiral Makarov.
Ooh, that's a pistol.
Yeah. There's something in the Russo-Ukrainian war update thread a little bit further up about it. But yeah, they lost another one.
Oh, let's see. Ooh, that one looks more modern.
Yeah.
Now and now we will probably wrap up here.
No. I mean, I mean, it's just there's stuff to talk about. I mean, I mean, whatever your position on the whole, Russia-Ukraine thing, it's still a little it's still a little concerning that U.S. I mean, the Russians aren't going to be happy about this. I mean, imagine if we were at war with Iran, and then the Russians told the Iranians where the Gerald R. Ford was, and then the Iranians sank that. Wouldn't we sort of see that as a violation of Russian neutrality? I mean, I don't think Putin's going to deploy the nukes because he knows that means sudden death for everybody. But
Yes and no. There is an argument that since Russia put a bounty on I forget when this happened, but Russia put a bounty on American soldiers.
Oh, that turned out to be false.
So there's a logic going on that is part of the whole shadow war and like the spy war that's going on between the US and Russia. So basically anything that is quote unquote black ops or involved in like intelligence operations isn't technically considered warfare, because if that would be the case, in the US and Russia has been in a constant state of war since World War II ended.
Well, I think that what you call it, that bounty thing turned out to be false and wasn't actually. It wasn't false and turned out to not be true. Wow, I just made a double statement. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I guess it's one thing when it's just like comic book villain, you stop the launch of a rocket or whatever, like it's Black Ops 2. But when it gets people killed, I mean, I don't know how many if any Russian personnel died on the Moskva, but I mean, that's still the fact that, like, because of official U.S. government involved. I mean, we're not talking about an American citizen who just like volunteered to fight in the Ukrainian war. We're talking about information the U.S. government provided that got Russians killed. Yeah, that's just, and the other way around. I mean, that just seems. I don't know. I just like to live in a world where either we're at war or we're not. Is that too hard to ask for? I mean, I know history has never been that black and white, but like.
It's kind of difficult because I know that for most of this panel, everybody does not remember a time before 9/11 where we were truly at peace. where you could take your family member to the airport and actually go into the gate with them and see them off at the gate, etc., etc. But I am not going to get on my soapbox here. What I will get on my soapbox for, however, is, I suppose, if there's no objection, wrapping up.
I mean, I guess does Darth or Will, or I guess does Darth have anything to say about this news, or?
I mean, not surprised that the regime is supporting a regime that's a puppet to the U.S. So,
yeah, I mean, all right. I guess we're in a position to.
Yes, it looks like we are. So, this episode is going to be coming out the day after Mother's Day. So, a very happy Mother's Day to all the moms out there. And this is a day that if you're listening to us live, which I know we don't have an audience right now, we did before. Yes, I know. But our audience, I would like to remind you guys, if you are able to do so, call your mother, wish her a happy Mother's Day, and tell her how much you love her and how much she means to you. I wish I could call mine. So, anyway, do that for me, and also keep yourselves and your families safe, especially if you are in an inner city going to a Catholic Mass this Mother's Day. Especially in light of the situation of people targeting Catholic churches, keep yourselves and your families safe, be aware of your surroundings, and if you are told to do something by someone in authority at your parish, do it. 100%.
Unless it's wrong, in which case ignore Father Feelgood.
Yeah. I am speaking with regards to the security threat, nothing else.
Oh, okay.
But anyway, what was I gonna say? Oh, if you would like to follow us on other social media platforms, you can do so by checking out the links in the description down below. If you would like to speak with us live, if you would like to listen to our podcast live, we record live in our Discord server, Fridays at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Link to that will be in the description. Also, down below. And we would like to wish a very happy birthday to King Gustav of Sweden. I don't know how old he turns, but happy birthday to the King of Sweden.
All right. Is it time for me to conclude in prayer?
I believe it is.
All right. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Ghost, amen. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our
daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Amen.
In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Ghost, amen.
And may God bless you, and may God bless the United States of America.